Global Forum, where Amber Kanwar is standing by with the head of one of the leading asset management and investment banking firms in the Middle East and North Africa. Amber.
Hi, Michael. I'm here with Maha who's actually the Group Chief Executive Officer at Global Investment House in Kuwait. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you for hosting me.
So you are here to talk about attracting investments to your region, and that means more than just Kuwait. Talk a little bit about what the opportunities are that you're trying to communicate here in Canada.
Well, I wanted to bring attention to what's happening in the Middle East and in particular to the Gulf region, which actually entails the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and Oman and Bahrain. I think there's a lot of perception today that the whole area is actually in a turmoil or a civil war or a chaotic situation, but it's not necessarily true in relation to the whole area, maybe in some particular countries, which is an evolution from what's happening with the Arab Springs. But obviously the GCC countries or the Gulf countries are enjoying huge surpluses today, and I think they've learned from what's happening in other parts of the world to focus a lot now on developing their economies to be able to grow on a sustainable path and also focus more on the humans and the societies.
And so when you're talking about that perception of geopolitical risk, are you saying that events like what's happening in Syria as well as tensions with Iran don't necessarily impact directly the investment climate in the countries that you're talking about?
I'm sure it does. Obviously, Iran is such a close to our border, and the whole world is so much smaller than it used to be. It does, but everything is embedded in the values of the investments and in the returns. We've seen the GCC markets perform extremely well for the past 2 years, with performance in some countries, like in Dubai, exceeding 80% year to date. So obviously there are opportunities, and there are risks associated with these opportunities.
Now, you mentioned Dubai, and of course that became an issue a couple of years ago with the global financial crisis. How quickly or how rapidly has Dubai, and in fact the rest of the Middle East, rebuilt from the financial crisis, and what are the opportunities for the next 5 years?
I think there were a lot of lessons to be learned from the financial crisis, and it has proven that no one is resilient to what's happening, and this is definitely a global problem. There was a lot of effect when the advanced economies started to suffer. They were looking for the emerging markets to help boost the growth of world economy, and that's very interesting. And Dubai obviously is a country that went through a strong boom like the rest of the GCC and many emerging markets during the periods from 2004 up till 2008. And when the financial crisis hit the international banks, who were also important lenders to these conglomerates that were operating within Dubai, it had an effect in the fact that they needed to restructure this debt. But I believe Dubai today has surpassed that kind of a danger, and it has put itself back in the correct path.
And how confident are you in the global growth picture right now? We heard from the Fed today in the U.S. They're still not confident that a recovery is really, steamrolling full speed ahead. How does that impact regions that you're talking about?
Well, I believe today we're in a much better situation than where we were last year, and I believe next year, same time, we'll be in a better situation than where we are today. There are obviously good signs of improvement, whether in shrinking the budget deficits around the world or in putting proper economic reforms to put the economies back into its proper path. And obviously the GCC economies or the Gulf countries are very much dependent on oil and gas prices, and with the current surpluses they are enjoying today, they're moving very much towards investments inward, where we see huge infrastructure projects that are being developed in the region, huge development plans that are being announced by the governments to focus on building back the infrastructure and developing these countries for a better future.
All right, thank you very much for that perspective.
Thank you, pleasure.
Maha, I'll send it back to you, Michael, in the newsroom.
Thank you. Amber Kanwar, live on location.